Hey everyone, I'm Minister James Moss. We're back again with continuing education, and we're in the book of Luke. We're in chapter 23, and we're going to cover verses 13 through 25. So let me make sure that we don't go past 25, because this is about to get good. And you know how sometimes you get to reading something that's good, and then all of a sudden, wow, you're caught up. And I don't want to. I want to stick with the program here, okay? All right, so here we go. This one is entitled, Pilate Hands Jesus Over to be Crucified. All right, so now we had the shuffling of the feet from taking Jesus to Pilate to taking Jesus to Herod, and then back over. Pilate is like, okay, well, send him over to the executioners. Okay, here we go. According to the Roman custom of releasing a criminal during the Passover season, Pilate presented Jesus to the people. Pilate did not want to bear the responsibility of putting an innocent man to death, but the crowd insisted on Barabbas' freedom. That Jesus literally died in Barabbas' place vividly illustrates the ultimate sacrifice and significance of Jesus' death. He took the place of not only Barabbas, but all who stand condemned before God's perfect standard and trust in Christ's salvation. All right, or in Christ for salvation. Okay, either way. All right, so here we go. Verses 13 through 25. He actually took someone else's place literally, and then he took our places literally and figuratively. All right, so here we go. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people, and behold, I have examined him before you, and have found no guilt in this man touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of necessity he must release one of them unto them at the feast. And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them, but they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why? What evil hath he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired. But he delivered Jesus to their will. All right. Verses 13 and 14. Pilate thought he had gotten rid of his problem, only to have Jesus sent back. The decision still rested on his shoulders, so he attempted to let this innocent man go by telling Jesus' accusers that he found him innocent. Verse 15, Pilate could back up his decision with Herod's conclusion about Jesus. Herod had mocked Jesus, but apparently had sent back word to Pilate that he could find nothing worthy of the death penalty. Jesus was tried a total of 6 times by both Jewish and Roman authorities, but he was never convicted of a crime. Even when condemned to execution, he had been convicted of no felony. Verse 16, the word flogged may not indicate the severe flogging that Jesus received after being sentenced prior to the crucifixion. Although John chapter 19 verse 1 reports Jesus being flogged and then brought before the crowd. Pilate may have hoped that the flogging would appease the crowd and then they would change, or they would pity the man and let him go. Pilate was planning to release Jesus, but first he would punish him to pacify the Jews and to teach the prisoner a lesson to stay out of trouble in the future. Verses 18 and 19. The suggestion that Pilate was going to release Jesus sent the leaders into a frenzy. Pilate had wanted to release Jesus as the Passover gift. This had been a public announcement, so many people in the crowd cried out that Jesus must be put to death. The prisoner they wanted set free was a man named Barabbas, who may have been somewhat of a hero among the Jews for his acts of rebellion against Rome. He was a true rebel and revolutionary and had even committed murder. The religious leaders had tried to pin this accusation on Jesus in order to have him put to death, but they chose a man who had done such acts and wanted him set free. Clearly, their actions had no logic. They merely wanted Jesus put to death and would go to any lengths to make sure it happened. Verses 20 and 21. Pilate really wanted to release Jesus. Matthew recorded that even Pilate's wife had experienced a dream about Jesus and had urged Pilate to let Jesus go. Pilate must have been in a tight spot because for some reason he put himself in the position of bargaining with the crowd. He had the authority to let Jesus go and then go on with his day. Instead, he argued with them, but to no avail. They wanted Jesus to be crucified. Verse 22, Pilate tried for the third time. He could not fathom why the crowd so badly wanted this man's death. Jesus had not committed to any crime or had not committed any crime, so there was no reason to sentence him to death. There are two reasons why Luke stressed these three attempts Pilate had made to release Jesus. First, Luke wanted to show through his gospel the innocence of Jesus before Roman law. Luke was giving evidence to prove the acceptability of Christianity to his Gentile readers. Second, he was establishing the Jewish mob's guilt for Jesus' death. Verses 23 and 24, Pilate wanted to release Jesus, but the crowd shouted louder and louder, so Pilate sentenced Jesus to death. No doubt, Pilate did not want to risk losing his position, which may already have been shaky, by allowing a riot to occur in his province. As a career politician, he knew the importance of compromise, and he saw Jesus more as a political threat than a human being with rights and dignity. Verse 25, Pilate released Barabbas and delivered Jesus over to them to do as they wished. Matthew's gospel explains that Pilate took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd to symbolize his innocence in condemning Jesus. But this action was no more than self-deception. Jesus may have been surrendered to the will of the mob, but this was still a purely Roman execution. Pilate had to command it in order for it to happen. Remember, the Jews couldn't exercise a death penalty. It had to be the Roman government. All right, so this was where they're saying Pilate, even though, and the thing is, we know that this had to happen, but the Jews made sure that they pushed, and they even told him that they would tell Caesar that he's not a friend of Caesar, because if he was a friend of Caesar, he would bow to their wishes and crucify Christ. All right, so look. Like I always say, make sure that you study these things. Study all the gospels so that you can get a broader scope of what took place, because each gospel gives you something different. Even though they're telling the same story, the story is the same, but they give you different occurrences, different conversations, things that each writer either observed or gathered in their research. So until next time, God bless you, God keep you, and continue to keep studying.